Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back, or I should say welcome to the first stream of the off season. Of course, 2024 season is now in the rear view mirror, chat. And while, I ain't gonna lie to you guys, don't get it twisted. I've gotten better with it, but I'm certainly not over it. I don't think I will be, especially, whether it's the fifth inning or just that game 5 overall, losing the World Series, whatever way you want to phrase it, till they eventually do win. Which hopefully will be, this time next year, chat, maybe we're celebrating a parade, and that's what now we turn our attention to. Just like, we were talking about after Game 5, and this all ended, and in part what kind of sucks, but I do take pride in, is now we do it all again. And the part that sucks about it is the regular season. We can't redeem ourselves in the regular season of what just happened in Game 5, the World Series last week, all of it. Can't redeem ourselves till a year from now. But if we want to have that chance and we want to give ourselves the best chance possible, we need to have ourselves an offseason. I'll tell you right now, we're going to talk about Soto in this live stream right here, which, by the way, on the topic of that, this is not the Yankees Offseason Blueprint video that I do every year. That will be coming out on its own. A separate video, won't be live. Probably, I would say hopefully by Thanksgiving, but maybe sooner than that, maybe next week, because I do kind of got to get on it quicker. Obviously, normally I don't have this little of time. Haven't been to the World Series till just this year, of course. Well, since I've started doing this, Yankees Avenue. Anyways, we are going to just go through the priorities this offseason, and going back to the Juan Soto thing, we're not going to spend too much time on it. And spoiler for the Blueprint, I'm not going to spend too much time on him there either, because it's to be assumed. Juan Soto has to come back. I'm going to be treating it very matter of fact, and you know what? Let's hold off on that until we do get to his section, which is first, so we can get out of the way. But before that, let's hear from Cashman, who did speak today. We're going to be kind of intertwining a lot of these slides with also sound bites from Brian Cashman. So we'll hear from him in a moment, just about the sloppiness of Game 5 and the matchup, Yankees Dodgers, all that, and then we'll hear about him on Boone. We'll hear about him, on Boone, Glaber, Soto, all of it. So first things first. Here's just where he's at after the World Series last week.
First and foremost, I acknowledge that we played poorly in the World Series. We all saw that, and unfortunately our A game didn't show up when it counted the most. I also think objectively, if you take a step back and analyze who we played, whether it was the Dodgers or any of the other postseason teams, those rosters are all constructed with players that do things in some category better than others. You have exceptionally great defenders that don't hit as well. You have really good hitters that don't defend as well, and the combination of how it all fits together plays out a certain way over the course of 162 and then in the month of October. They're the world champs and they get all the credit, but I don't think it's a fair representation at the same time. I think it's more fair to say, did we just play poorly in that series and underperform? I think we underperformed in that series, more so than somehow this team was lucky to get to the World Series, and how do we even get there? And we had a good team. Currently have players that will remain with your team, and then you have a chance to go to marketplace to see if you can improve the team in certain ways, shape, form, and we're back at it.
Exactly, just like we are here beginning the offseason streaming-wise. Now, a lot of what Cashman said there, it's quite easy to see, the mood he's in, and that is probably pretty pissed that a lot of people are talking like it was a landslide matchup between the Dodgers over the Yankees, which I'll back Cashman up on that front, just flat out isn't true. I mean, I don't want to be the guy to pull out that graphic that a lot of people are, and I do get why, of the series matchups or the series, side-to-side totals, runs scored, home runs, WRC plus, OPS. When it comes to on-paper stats like that, the Yankees matched up perfectly, if not better than the Dodgers by series end. Obviously, though, the whole focus of them losing is that fifth inning and the sloppiness that Yankee fans have complained about all season long, lack of fundamentals, which we'll talk about towards the end when we get to the coaching staff side of things. But on one hand, I do get where he's saying, they got to play better. I mean, the malfunction by Anthony Rizzo there was absurd. Don't even want to talk about the inning too much, to be honest, but obviously, the Judge thing, some bad plays by Jazz. And to that, I would say, on the Jazz side of things, I mean, he never played third base in his life before. And while he wasn't the focal point of that fifth inning, he had a pretty ugly play the game before. And just in general, what do you really expect when, not so much on that side of things, playing guys out of position, because in the end, that's not to blame for Judge not missing or not catching the fly ball in center field. Judge misses that ball 1 out of 1,000 times, and it just so happened to be in Game 5 of the World Series. But also, we've heard countless times over and over that they don't really preach fundamentals the way, sorry, you guys hear that shit in the background, bro? Damn. We hear all the time, man. We heard from the article last week with the Dodgers how their game plan was to. I hope you guys hear that, yo, because I'm not just getting distracted for no reason. I hope everybody's okay, because it sounds like somebody's passing away. I don't know. It is election night, by the way, and we ain't going to be talking about that on here, I assure you. Anyways, as I was saying, there was the article in the New York Post last week from Jules Sherman about insight from the Dodgers clubhouse and what their game plan was going into the World Series, which was put the ball in play. You got to bank on that the Yankees are going to make mistakes, and surely enough, that is what happened. And in general, it is embarrassing. Like, we've been getting clowned on, not just for losing the World Series in 5, but the way we lost. Again, I won't forget about that until we eventually do win. It's going to haunt me. It's going to haunt us. I assume going to haunt the Yankee players and maybe even Brian Cashman. I don't know. Regardless, though, when it comes to fundamentals, poor base running, lack of knowing what to do in the infield, that's kind of a situation where you made your bet, you got to lay in it type thing. So we'll get more to the coaching side of things. But let's chat. Let's get into, it's so good to see you guys, by the way. We will be probably taking a couple questions towards the end once we get through these 5 slides that I do have. But before we get to that, let's just address the kind of small but significant amount of news we've had so far over the last few days. First things first, Anthony Rizzo's club option has been declined as expected, so he's on the hook to get a $6 million buyout from the Yankees. Probably has already received that now that it's official, which of course makes him a free agent. Now this isn't so much a surprise, and we're definitely going to talk about first base. I keep spoiling all my slides. I'm just telling you guys the whole video. But first base definitely has to be addressed because Anthony Rizzo, he will certainly walk, at least, fingers crossed. And I don't have any ill will when it comes to Anthony Rizzo, as a dude. Like, there was when I posted about this news on Yanks Ad the other day, there was a dude who was saying, because in my caption I said, appreciate everything that he was about, but obviously it was time to move on. And this guy comes back, one of those all right, this guy did something bad, so this guy sucks, he's an asshole, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not where I'm at with Rizzo, man. Like, I know he probably has hardly been sleeping since that play, and I do appreciate what he was all about as a Yankee. And let's not forget, I don't want to preface this by saying not making excuses for him. This is like the biggest excuse in the world. I mean, Fernando Tatis, if he doesn't fucking assault him at first base, and I say that lightly, I know it was not intentional, but like, don't all of a sudden forget, which nobody was seemingly forgetting until recently, I feel like, with the way his goodbye is being discussed. And I do get it. Game 5 was fucking awful. You guys know I was tweaking about that. But if not for the concussion, Rizzo was balling out as a Yankee. I mean, 2022, 30-plus homers, 800 OPS. We felt just fine about him at first base, no problem at all. And then to start out 2022, until Tatis hit him at first base, he was having a career year, at least one of the better years of his career. And then it all went downhill from there. So obviously didn't end well. But again, I just want to emphasize, I appreciate everything that Rizzo was about. With that said, it is no doubt about it time to move on, which we'll get there in a little bit. Garrett Cole, not news. That was news. Now, of course, what was it? Saturday, whatever it was, he officially opted out, which cliff notes on that for those who don't know, the whole thing was he opts out. Yankees can then, to avoid that opt-out, all they have to do is simply tack on an extra year, same AAV, $36 million a year. So Cole's 9-year deal he's in the midst of. To avoid that, the Yankees had to just make it a 10-year deal, basically. $36 million a year over 10 years, which they did not do, actually. And I'm not in any mode to credit Brian Cashman, not that I really even give a shit, but he kind of big balled Cole a little bit and said, we don't feel comfortable doing that. And the result of that conversation was Cole just saying, all right, we'll stay put in the current deal. And that's exactly what it is. So it's as if the opt-out never happened. I could, wipe away that slide right now. We can just pretend it didn't happen because we're in the same spot we were a week ago. 4 years, $144 million left on his deal, Garrett Cole, which we knew all along. And I try to make this come across as much as possible on the Yanks Staff post because I did have to post about it. It was news, but there was never to be any concern that Garrett Cole wouldn't be a Yankee. And now nothing really changes at all, literally nothing. And there is reports that they will continue to discuss extension talks. I mean, let's be honest, chat, and we can move on. Garrett Cole will be a Yankee for life. I don't really think anybody should be worrying about that whatsoever, but at the very least for the next 4 years. Anyways, Gleyber Torres, he did not receive a qualifying offer, which a lot of people would have expected. We're going to talk about him a little bit more later on in second base as a whole, but sounds like he's most likely not being re-signed. And again, we'll get to more of that later. We're going to hear from Cashman. But let's get into the 5 things the Yankees have to do, or more so 5 priorities. Again, this is not my offseason blueprint. That will be a separate video coming out pretty soon in the next couple weeks. But first things first, let's get through the obvious, and we're going to run through this. And same deal with the blueprint, y'all. I'm treating this as very matter-of-fact. Re-sign Juan Soto, that is obvious. And I'll tell you right now, chat, I'm telling you right now, dude, when the news does happen, and I anticipate him being signed, I am also very confident, which is why in part why I'm acting this way. When he does get signed, I'll knock on wood because obviously I don't know anything. I will quote tweet the breaking news report from Jeff Passan or whatever it is and just say word in lowercase letters. I will be hyped, don't get me wrong, but when I'm looking back on the offseason, if that's all it is, just bringing back Soto and that's your move, I mean, at the time of the deal, I won't be too thrilled, just being completely honest, at least the way I feel right now. And then especially in hindsight, this does not make it an A offseason if you just bring back Juan Soto, and that's that. So, again, not going to spend too much time on it. What can you really talk about? Bring the dude back. He's generational. No shit. And one more thing I want to point out is something we have discussed when it comes to, anytime the Yankees would lose a World Series game or after they did ultimately lose the whole thing, people would be like, well, he's definitely going to the Mets now. I think that's fucking hilarious. Getting to the World Series in your first season with the Yankees, while for us, not winning it means jack shit, and it is embarrassing to us as a fan. It's not like the worst first impression in the world for Juan Soto to have gone to the World Series in his first season as a Yankee, and the amount of love he got from the fans. I mean, I was confident as hell that he'd be coming back before the playoffs. I really, really was. And for those who've been on the streams, you know that. But, dude, factor in now that Hal just made a bank, dude. The amount of money, even though they didn't win it, the amount of money guys at the Yankees, and baseball, by the way, from the TV revenue, which does get split evenly amongst all 30 teams, which is bullshit because not all 30 teams evenly spend it back. Regardless, the Yankees just made fucking bank. So I was already confident before this, now that they got the World Series run money in their pockets too. And I'd like to think, while I could totally see Cashman in his head looking at the season as like a success, which is bullshit, how I have some faith that he's a little bit PO'd. So no doubt about it, I think, or only maybe 3 or 4 or 5% at most doubt about it that Juan Soto will be back. And to be honest, I think most people know that across baseball. Even some Mets fans, I was talking to Jolly, he expects the Yankees to retain Juan Soto. And my point is, to wrap this up before we move on to the next one, is as long as they're in the ballpark, and by ballpark I mean like nothing too large. I mean, I'm talking 10 to 20 mil max. But if you're offering Soto 650 and Steve Cohen ups it to like 665, 670, I mean, I don't want to be the guy that says, well, you're making so much money, like what's the difference? But at that point, you kind of just go preferred destination, especially if this strings along deep into the season, which, not into the season, but, being a Scott Boras client, I could definitely see this. I expect it to be honest, go into January with Soto's negotiations. But the only way the ballpark theory, I don't want to call it a theory, but the ballpark logic that I'm saying, as long as you're within the ballpark at a respectable number, I'm talking like mid-600s type thing, I think Soto's preference to be a Yankee will be the ultimate deciding factor, as long as you're at a respectable number. And by respectable, again, I mean like an insane amount of money. But people are talking with the number 7. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but of course the significance of that is that's Shohei's contract, which no matter what, I don't really think is going to happen, but especially if he's not going to defer the money. Anyways, if that were on the table that he could possibly get 700, that's where the exact number does come into play more, because then you're talking record-breaking stuff. Otherwise, I mean, he's going to shatter the record for a position player by a landslide, so there's nothing to do with that. So the only record he has to break contract-wise that he's not already a lock for is Shohei, which I just don't see happening. I think he'll be a Yankee, but again, to wrap up this entire slide here before we move on to the next one, I'm not gonna. I'll be happy, Chet. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna be celebrating it the same way I did when we acquired him last year. We just had Juan Soto on the team, and sure, he was a difference in getting us to the World Series. First time we've been there since '09. Whoop de freaking do. And I'm not doing that against Soto. I'm saying this to Cashman right now. And Hal, this can't be it. This cannot be it. So I will be treating it again very matter of fact when it does happen, and I'll say word, but that's the minimum. This is to be assumed that the Yankees will take care of this first priority, and that is re-sign Juan Soto. Although, to be honest, could even end up being the last thing done when it actually happens, like chronologically in the offseason. Might be the last thing, major move they make, which will complicate things a little bit. But we'll get there when we get there. Next thing, just talked about it with Anthony Rizzo. Won't discuss him too much more, but of course, first base is now open. So where do they go? Now, really quick, like, there is a world where Rizzo, they declined his option, the $6 million buyout, and one might say, oh, well, they declined his option because they just don't want to pick up the 17 that he would have been paid if they did pick up that option, which, of course, no way you were doing that. Some may say, like, with the buyout, could you bring him back for like $5 million total, like Rizzo returns for $10 million total, whatever the hell, for $10, $11 million to play first base again? Bro, I'm good. I don't really even want to entertain that. Another thing I don't really want to entertain at first base now this is totally different than where I was at a couple weeks ago or like a month ago. You guys know I love Ben Rice. Love him, love him, love him. And I kind of hurts to say this because I think he's going to be really, really good, but he just lost the World Series. I'm not banking on a rookie first baseman, especially when, Jason's getting left next year, or center. He probably should be in center, to be honest, because left field Yankee Stadium's huge. Anyways, you don't stack rookies all over the place, especially because, we'll get the second base. We got to see what we're doing there. They might go internal at second or maybe third if you put Jazz at second, whatever it is. This all goes back to it can't just be Soto. It cannot just be Soto. You need more. You're losing your first baseman. You're losing your second baseman. You don't have a left fielder unless you definitely go with Jason, which is the move right now. But I'll tell you this. I don't want to be all over the place. If Jason's your left fielder, I would announce it today. Or not even so much that. If he's your left fielder, once you officially name him your left fielder on opening day, make that be the case. He is the left fielder or center fielder. Again, he probably should play center. But with that said, I do want to bring up one name really quick that, I haven't tweeted about too much, but I think I've mentioned him in person, though, in the office, whoever I'm talking to. You guys know I'm all about it. Christian, did I not have the VO ready? Damn. Well, imagine Christian Walker hitting some home runs right now. But these are his stats from last year. First things first, speaking of first, 39 outs above average at the position since 2022. That's the best in baseball. So I'll tell you this. When I was initially seeing Christian Walker as a free agent, we've talked about him going back to let me get the stupid freaking VO in here so I can yap about him and not feel bad. Going back to the deadline, we talked about Christian Walker, which was never really going to happen. But one sec. Word. Anyways, I was just all about him strictly from the offensive side of things. This dude does it at 800, an above 800 OPS for 3 straight seasons now, co-aligning with that 2022. Has been a 30 homer bat. Would have been this year too, but he had an oblique strain, so he only played 130 games. Still though, 119 WRC plus. This dude can hit, and he's a right-handed bat. Again, terrific defense at first base, which would be an upgrade over what current Anthony Rizzo was, who obviously regressed defensively, especially since the concussion. And right-handed bat, by the way, that's the move right now for the Yankees. I mean, assuming they do bring back Soto, I know we have the default, and I do too. You naturally just all right, look for left-handed free agents. That's your first thought. You want to be lefty. Not really now, which is awesome because the Yankees lineup balance was the one thing they did kind of conquer, or one of the main things they conquered this year in improving from 23 to 24. But man, if you get Soto back, you have him that's left-handed. You'll have Jazz that's left-handed. You'll have who else here? Jason's a switch hitter. You'll have Wells who is left-handed. So the lineup is balanced. So you're almost looking for a right-handed bat, and this is just the way to go. Again, this is not the offseason blueprint. We'll talk about him more in detail with legitimate roster construction logic behind it, but there's not much to go into it. I mean, Christian Walker rakes. He plays terrific defense. Now, he is 33 years old, and someone mentioned the age side of things, and even comparing him to Rizzo, which I think is silly because Rizzo's career fell off because of concussion, not because of his age. 33 is not that old. Now, you definitely don't want to give him a 4 or 5 year deal, especially 5. Now, 4, I really want to avoid getting sucked into that. But if I told you right now, Chad, for those who are disagreeing, if you could get Christian Walker on a 3-year deal, a guy who is a 30 homer bat, 800 OPS or over 800 OPS season, 3 years in a row, terrific defense, best defensive first baseman in baseball, 3 years, 75 mil, maybe takes a little bit more than that. We'll see, but this is definitely my number one target when it comes to replacing Rizzo at first base, which they have to do. Again, big Ben Rice guy after losing the World Series, and again, in embarrassing fashion. You can't go internal, especially not all over the place, because you're going internal with Jason, which is good, you should, and there's a good chance you go internal in the infield as well, replacing Glaber. So go out and get Christian Walker, and I don't feel like this is me being a crazy, irrational Yankee fan or nothing, because I'm not asking them to re-sign Soto and then go get Pete Alonso and give him a $200 million deal, or go out to get, now I did mention Willie Adames moving him to second base. That was 2 days after the World Series. That I've totally backed off of, but that's irrational. Christian Walker, again, you could probably sign him for $75 million. That's a reasonable ask as a Yankee fan. Would essentially be Soto's on the team last year. That would be the one improvement. Give me a freaking first baseman on a 3-year deal, please. It's a no-brainer, to be honest. The more and more I talk about it, this has to happen. Only way it doesn't happen, and I'll be okay with it, is if some dumbass fucking team signs a 5-year deal. Then all right, rotten hell. But address first base. That is offseason priority number 2. And again, if you're just joining, offseason priority number 1 was re-sign Juan Soto. Now, let's talk about second base, and we'll hear from Cashman in just a second. But of course, Gleyber Torres, he is a free agent. Many have mentioned, well, you move Jazz to second. Okay, then third base is opened up. So whichever way you do it, when I mention Jazz at third base, you're pushing back and saying well, Jazz should play second. All right, fine. Then you need a third base, and whatever it is, there's now a hole in the infield. And here is Brian Cashman when asked about the downsides of Gleyber's game, but just, I don't know, his overall opinion on him going into free agency.
His defense, is that a problem in your mind when you look at his fielding percentage? And obviously he's very good going to the right, but not very good going the other way.
I think Gleyber has been a really good Major League Baseball player. In the end, one of the reasons why we got as far as we did. I'm not going to dissect what he's good at and what he's not as good at. Obviously I think he'll have a lot of conversations with a lot of teams that have a need in that area. And that also might include us, who knows. And but I appreciate his efforts while he was here.
It kind of sounds like it tells you all you need to know. Now, I've had really only since he went off like crazy, since going to leadoff in August and the pretty damn good playoffs he had too, some, dreams of could they bring Gleyber back, and, some that relied on maybe they would give him a qualifying offer, which obviously they did. And hearing Cashman there, though, I mean, he's gone. And I can get over that, no doubt about it. What makes it tough, though, is I've tried to write out a lineup the last few days, and even with the acquisitions that I've had in my head, like Soto returning, Christian Walker, and I have another guy in mind. Maybe I'll tease it here today, but it's more of a blueprint thing when we'll fully go into it. But anyways, when writing out the lineup, I can't do it without Gleyber Torres because it's like, who's leading off? And I'm telling you right now, chat, I'm so high on Volpe right now after the World Series. I think that Grand Slam alone boosted his WRC plus next year, +5 at least, if not plus. Like the comps he got from that, where he's at now, I feel good about it. But you can't just throw him back into leadoff next year. Like, you just cannot fucking do it. Let him fully blossom. If I was a Yankees dude with Volpe, I would write it in a fucking chalkboard, big as hell for everybody to see. Anthony Volpe is batting 7th this year. Keep him in the 7 hole all year long. Now, circumstances can obviously come into play. But anyways, what makes me feel sad about Gleyber leaving is the idea of, one, I mean, I'm going to miss him. I like Gleyber a lot. Who the hell's leading off, chat? Who the hell is leading off if you don't have Gleyber Torres back? And this is a conversation for a later date, but the only thing I can think of is Soto. We'll get there when we get there. Obviously, this is not a conversation for right now. But what I'm getting at is, it is going to suck to lose Gleyber, and I think that's where we're headed. Gleyber will not return. We'll see where he goes, unless maybe, he's still hanging around come January or February, and they can get him on another, 1 year, $15 million deal. I don't see that happening. I think he's definitely in for at least 3 years, 2 or 3 year deal he can get. Probably have an opt-out after 1. I'm sure Gleyber can get at least $40 to $50 million guaranteed, if not more, because he's the best second baseman on the market right now and finished the year so strong. So, going to miss Gleyber, but it's almost definite he is heading out, and that's where we get to the conversation, who's on second, which this wasn't intentional, I could have went, I don't know why I didn't go who's on first and then address second base. So if you're wondering why I did it that way. Anyways, good question. Who is on second base, chat? Who is on second base? Now, again, let's just talk in terms of an open infield spot, because they very well could put Jazz at second base next year. Then it's okay, word, Jazz can play second. Who's on third? There's 2 ways that we'll talk about that I can see it going. There's many ways it can go, but one, internal, which was always kind of the assumption that, it could be Yorbit Vivas taking over at second base after Gleyber goes, or it could be Oswald Peraza finally getting a full-time chance, which he's had, to be honest, some chances. But Peraza could be a go at second base next year. Out of everybody on the roster, to be honest, if there's an infield spot that we're going to go internal with, for me, it's John Birdie. And I know a lot of you guys are going to mention Oswaldo Cabrera. You know how I feel about him. I love just Oswaldo going to the year as a bench guy. And he'll get a lot of playing time because, injuries happen. And, utility. Oswaldo will see a lot of time. I like him being in that role. A bench player, utility, can do whatever. Keep him that way. If you go internal, maybe you can have Birdie play second, play third, and hell, maybe he ends up leading off. I don't know. Kind of gross. We won't go into it too much, because I don't have anything prepared for it, but I've been talking about it a lot. I'm going to give it to you at the end. The other guy I'm thinking of that is an infielder that I would love to acquire, because I kind of have the blueprint of what I want to do for this offseason. But part of that is obviously we need an infielder, because Gleyber Torres is definitely gone. So that's the first 3 priorities. One is obvious, re-sign Juan Soto. The next, address first base, which you have to do. I'm good off for now. Again, I love him. But Ben Rice, you can't go internal after losing the World Series the way we just did. You got to go out and get the obvious move in Christian Walker. That's a no-brainer. Second base, a little bit more of a question mark. Are they going to go internal or are they going to go external? And again, just talking infield spot. They could move Jazz to second, but then you need somebody on third. So that's that. We'll talk about the name I have in mind possibly to be in the infield next year. We'll see. It's a trade. Anyways, next up we have bolster the bullpen. Now, of course, Clay Holmes is a free agent, and he's not like the focal point of why I'm saying this, but to point it out, obviously he is definitely going to be heading to another team. Yankees won't be bringing him back. And I don't see them signing Tanner Scott, who's a free agent. I'm not going to go crazy like, re-sign Soto, then add another $400 million in payroll on top of that. Go get Alonso and go get Tanner Scott. Like, nah, I ain't going to be that ridiculous or unreasonable. That's just most likely not going to happen. But one way or another, you got to bolster the bullpen with some sort of legitimate name. Now, that could be, well, not Tanner Scott. I believe Estevez is a free agent, the closer that got traded from the Angels to whoever at the deadline. You could maybe make a move for Devin Williams. We talked about him on Baseball Today. Chris Rose and Trevor Plouffe did. He's a trade candidate, and he's nasty. Or even some sort of guy I'm not thinking of. But I don't want to put it that way because the Yankees are very good at getting dudes off the scrap heap and continue to do that, and it worked still. I mean, Jay Cousins, Tim Hill, who you'll definitely want to bring back. He's a free agent. Keep doing that. That works. Get one legitimate name, though. And I'm not talking like a Caleb Ferguson type name. I'm saying, go out and get Devin Williams. Make a trade. Make a trade for Devin Williams, 1 year control on him. Or, I don't know. I won't lie or pretend I have the whole reliever market down in my entire brain. But go out and get a legitimate reliever, some dude that ideally you feel good about if you have to give the ball in the ninth inning to. Now, Luke Weaver's your closer, but I more so look at Weaver as he'll pitch the ninth inning, but he's a multi-out weapon, or multi-inning weapon, rather, that as of right now in the current formation of the bullpen is your closer. But you don't got to be married to that, Just get a lot of good arms in there, and I trust them to organically do that with the free agent market of like scrap heap dudes and picking guys up that nobody would think of. But I want one guy we know, and again, not like a dude we know just because we know. Like I knew who Caleb Ferguson was last year, but I want try to go get fucking Devin Williams, bro. Like go bolster the bullpen. Exactly what it says here. Go bolster the bullpen. One thing about the World Series that doesn't get talked about too much, maybe it does, but and understandably so, not at the forefront of the issues. I like Kane a lot, bro, but like that's a fucking awful job out of him in Game 5. Jay Cousins too, I'm not blaming him. This is kind of alluding to my point back here, Like Jay Cousins is not to be blamed for the loss in Game 1, but in part he did blow it by, I forget exactly what it was, he walked the two guys he had on before they went to Ness or whatever it was that inning. Maybe it was when they had the lead in the 8th, whatever it was. It would be nice to have a legitimate name in the back end of the pen. And again, not because Clay's leaving. Like that, I have it on here because he is leaving, and that's a story, and they're not bringing him back. But that is like a loss. You gotta fix the bullpen up a little bit. And again, just to not keep rambling on about it, get one legitimate name. Alrighty, last thing. Now, this one's kind of obvious, but we do got to talk about it because it's confirmed. Boone kind of knew this. Boone is coming back in 2025, which let's hear from Cashman on that and the decisions Boone made, if he had any issues with them, and just where he's at with Boone overall. Entering what is they picked up his option, so he's on the books for at least one more year. Here's Cashman.
It's been my favorite team I've ever.
That is not Cashman. That is Alex Verdugo.
The manager job is so impossible, so you can play the game of second guessing because you're either going to make a move and it'll be right, you make a move and it'll be wrong, and then have at it, right? So, as I said, I think he's a really, really good manager. I think we're lucky to have him, and he's done a great job. And but at the same time, it's a very hard job to do, always. So, and it gets harder in the postseason because ultimately, it's either whatever you do either works or it doesn't.
Yeah. So whether you agree with that or not, and for those who don't know about the way I feel about Boone, I don't have him even really in my top 5 for reasons why they lost the World Series in 2025 or 2024 rather. I don't know why I said that like I was giving the Gettysburg Address. Boone's coming back. We kind of knew that. And to be honest, I don't really have too much. I don't have a problem with that really at all. Now, the reason I would want him to be gone, and the only reason I would allow this in my head to be cool with it, is if Cashman went too. I'm always down for after an embarrassment like we just had, and that goes for every year where we don't make the playoffs, or well, not every year. I mean, that was 23, but getting bounced in the playoffs, whatever it may be, and that includes losing the World Series. Even if you get embarrassed, I'm always down to clean house and show that certain things are not acceptable. In my ideal world, that does happen, to be honest. So I guess you could say I do want Boone fired, but I would never call for it if that means Cashman's staying, which obviously it would mean because Cashman's not going anywhere, and Boone's not going anywhere. We do know that for now. So with that in mind, though, you got to revamp and at least evaluate the staff around you. I mean, we can start with Luis Rojas at third base, which when I bring that up, many of you may instantly go to like the sense at third base, which I actually am in the minority of. Like I haven't had too much of an issue with this. Like I thought the sense that Phil Nevin made were way worse. Rojas has had some questionable ones, but the ones that stand out, at least as of late, the Giancarlo Stanton send, a lot of you guys know I was totally on board with and stand by it to this moment right now. We don't have to go through every single one, and there definitely are ones that I disagree with, but I want to point more so towards the fact that he's the infield coach, and the infield needs to be, whether it's the actual fundamentals of things they're doing or just being told, yo, you got to work on the fundamentals. I mean, it's no secret. We've heard about it for a while now. The Yankees do a lot less infield work than majority of other teams, or at least most teams that are highly analytical, teams like the Dodgers and whatnot. I mean, I was talking to Chris Rose this morning, and I won't say the whole thing because in part I don't fully remember what he was saying, but they had Miguel Rojas on the Chris Rose rotation yesterday. I think it's coming out, or today. It's coming out at some point this week or next week. But he goes into detail about things the Dodgers do when it just comes to base running. And I won't spoil it right now, but it's interesting to listen to, so I'll give you a little bit of what Rose told me, that the Dodgers every day, they have this board that measures your base running, whether it's, I think they said including games and like simulated stuff and practicing, whatever it may be. And there's green, there's yellows, there's red. And if you're in the red, or even I think if you're in the yellow, like it's embarrassing to the Dodgers. You got to see the whole clip. Again, I'm just going through telephone here, what Rose told me from the interview, and I don't want to give the whole thing away. You got to check it out. But just stuff like that, man. There's clearly things the Yankees aren't doing when it comes to like the specifics of the fundamentals, or more so just enforcing that you work on those fundamentals, because that part we do know. Not saying they don't ever take IO or nothing, but it sounds like they do it a lot less than other teams, and that shows. And again, when it comes to the fifth inning, that certainly is the head of like stuff we've been complaining about all year with like the sloppiness of this team. And again, like whether it's the base running, which certainly wasn't great in the playoffs either. The fifth inning is kind of weird because the Rizzo and Cole play is why it's bad. Now Judge, it's ugly, but you don't have to like. There's nothing you could do to judge. Boone can't say anything to Judge after like, hey, catch the fly ball next time. I mean, like no shit, yeah. Like again, that was just weird, bro, and it was awful timing. It'll never happen again. Judge just dropped the fly ball. There's nothing to do to like work on that. And as for the Volpe play, we don't got to do the whole play-by-play of the fifth, by the way, again. But I won't call it a tough play, but like it's just bad because everything else that happened. I mean, it was kind of just like that. The Rizzo play was awful. But if you actually break it down to what like the situations are, like that's just an isolated problem of Rizzo really never taking the ball himself to first base. And I know Cole wasn't covering, but it goes way past just that fifth inning, dude. Like the fifth inning was ugly as hell, and it is the most embarrassing happening in probably World Series history. Has to be. But like for those who aren't watching this day in and day out, like all of us are, obviously, the day-to-day of like the regular season, what we saw honestly was worse, yo. Like the base running was fucking brutal, man. Brutal. So all that stuff. I mean, you guys know the deal. Revamp and evaluate, which I guess I should evaluate and revamp. That would be flip-flop because you got to see where the issues are, and then whether that means not necessarily firing a guy like Luis Rojas, but dude, I remember in the Girardi era, we got more to talk about the coaches in particular, by the way, but with Rojas, you could, if you don't feel great about the third base coach or as an infield coach, like you can keep him around, because no doubt about it, Luis Rojas is a good baseball mind to have on your staff. Like I full 100% agree with that. You can move him off third base coaching now, or you can move him off infield coaching. I remember in the Girardi era, yo, like didn't Rob Thompson like switch around all the time? I remember like Tony Pena, like there'd be times he was the bench coach, and like some years he was a first base coach. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember that not always happening, but it is a thing. If you want to keep Rojas around, dude, just like, I don't want to say demote him, like whatever it is, like give him another fucking role, bro. Like clearly, if it's not working out infield coaching wise, or if you don't feel good about him in a sense at third base, change that up. Now, they don't have a clubhouse culture problem. Clearly, I don't want to get into really any of that stuff. Because a lot of it's just crap. If the team doesn't win or the team's not hitting, say like, oh, they don't care, they're lifeless. Usually that's a bunch of, middle school cafeteria talk, to be honest. I'll say one thing, though, about kind of like the dynamic of their bench and going off the bench coach. Brad Ausmus, dude, and this is going purely off just like what I see. Like he kind of seems soft as hell to me, dude. And Boone certainly isn't soft, don't get me wrong. But the one thing I loved about Phil Nevin, that was kind of like, I don't know if it's like the yin to the yang, is how you would say it, but like him and Boone, like that's what you need. A guy like kind of like a tough, like gonna get in your face, which Phil Nevin certainly did, and that was awesome about Phil Nevin. He was an awful third base coach, but the way he acted as a bench coach, I thought was terrific. He served that role fantastically. That's the kind of bench coach I think Boone needs. And again, I don't think Boone's like a bitch or like really even all that soft, but he's not exactly like fucking Ozzie Guillen when it comes to being the most fiery manager of all time. I thought Ozzie Guillen's a world-renowned manager at all. But you get what I'm saying here. Like Brad Ausmus, if you just seen him in the dugout, he just I would like he's one of the dudes I would say not fire because I ultimately don't know shit about what goes on in the clubhouse and in the dugout, but I would write his name down. I would write Luis Rojas' name down, and like all these guys' names that you might have some questions about. Really, everybody's name to be honest. Evaluate them, see if they, I don't know, their day to day and how they go about doing things. Again, whether it's the fundamentals they teach or whatever they preach, if that in part contributed to why the fifth inning happened, or just in general the sloppiness and when we lost in the World Series. So again, to wrap that up, evaluate the staff, possibly revamp it. I mean, I think you definitely got to make some coaching changes here and there, because that's something that will happen. You can keep the manager, even in Boone's tenure. I mean, who was our bench coach in year one? It was like fucking Josh Bard, and then we had Nevin, and now we have Ausmus. Who do we have last year, by the way? It wasn't Nevin last year, right? Who was our bench coach last year, Chad? Anyways, I think you guys get what I'm saying here. So, yeah, let's recap that really quick, and then we'll go to the chat. But the obvious, re-sign Juan Soto. Again, for those maybe just joining, I will be treating this as so matter-of-fact, and we're not going to spend really too much time on it at all this offseason. And when it comes to posting Yankees Stab, there's not going to be any like bullshit-ass stupid updates. It's really going to be like, I will post when Juan Soto signs to the Yankees. Not to like that absurd of a degree, but you get the vibe I'm putting off here. Like, I'm not treating this like some, again, like the way I did last year, and none of us should, yo. I'm not saying don't be excited when we re-sign him, and obviously like, I will be happy and I'll be excited. But again, I'll quote the Jeff Passan tweet when the breaking news, Yankees re-sign Juan Soto, whatever it is, word in lowercase letters. What's next? And what's next better be, whether it's actually chronologically before or after Soto signing, address first base, and that is no doubt about it for me at least, and I think it should be pretty much a no-brainer to everybody in the Yankees organization. You guys obviously have your differing opinion, but Christian Walker's a no-brainer. Got to fill in first base. That's priority number 2. Who's on second? Are you going internal? Because Glaber's definitely leaving. And maybe I'll give you my name here. Actually, I have the whole recap right here. So there you go. Re-sign Soto, address first base. Who's on second? Bolster the bullpen, revamp. So yeah, you guys got all that. I'm going to turn it over to the chat, but I will give the name that I have in mind. And this kind of is just the notes version of what the beginning or part of the offseason blueprint is going to be. Obviously, re-sign Soto. You know how I feel about Christian Walker. He's your first baseman. You guys want to move Jazz to second? Word. Nolan Arenado, chat. I think it makes so much sense. And again, we're not going to go do a full deep dive. I don't have any graphics right now. I haven't really done like too much. We're in thinking mode right now. That's kind of what this video is, laying the foundation for the offseason. But obviously, he's regressed, but he's still above league average of a hitter. He's a 102 WRC plus last year. He's still pretty damn good defensively, very good. I mean, he'd be the best defensive third baseman we've had. Donaldson was technically a pretty good defensive. Anyways, he'd be really good defensively. Still, even at his age, which is 33. Not that, like, people act like 33 is like 40 these days. Arenado's on the books for one more year with the Cardinals. He is making, I think, 20-something mil a year, so it could be as simple as, all right, you take on all that money and you don't really got to give much back, or maybe the Cardinals eat a little bit and you give away some prospect that you didn't have a role for anyways. The way I see it, though, is if you were to add Nolan Arenado as basically, put it like this, like the third best addition, and that includes Soto. So Soto, Walker, and then Arenado, with how good the Yankees lineup would be, and the big part of that is adding Walker on top of Soto. I mean, if you look at lineup depth, I mean, Arenado's probably hitting 8th, dude. And I say 8th because I was so fixated on Volpe batting 7th. But you get Arenado, you can bet Arenado 7th. Fuck, bro. I wish I knew who was leading off because I would have a lineup ready for you guys right now. But that would be a very, very nice winning move. Acquiring Nolan Arenado for 1 year. Again, he's not a free agent. He has 1 more year at the Cardinals. Go get him to play third base, move Jazz over to second, sign Christian Walker. I mean, that's not... I'm sorry, chat. Like, I really don't feel like I'm being a rational Yankee fan post-World Series loss right now. I'm just not going to accept it being Soto, and that's it. So, what I'm asking here for, yo, is an additional... Let's say you give Walker, I don't know, to easy math, 20 mil a year. Soto, let's say he gets 50. From what he was being paid last year, that's 20 million difference. He was making 30. Let's say he makes 50. That's 20 mil there, 40 mil there. Nolan Arenado, so you think the whole thing. I'm asking for an additional 60 million in fucking payroll, chat. I'm asking for an additional 60 million added to the payroll, and just adding on to it because you have Glaber coming off. That's 15 mil off the books. Clay Holmes was making 10 to 15 mil. That's coming off the books. Alex fucking Verdugo was making 10 or so mil. That's off the books. it's all right there, dude. I'm talking Soto, Walker, Nolan Arenado, and this is, again, very like, we're just getting our feet wet with this. This is not an offseason blueprint at all. Soto, Walker, Arenado, net addition of about $30 million in payroll next year, roughly. And that's not your whole offseason, obviously. For me, it could be, but I did mention bolstering the bullpen to a degree. But if you get me Walker and Arenado, I'll be back in the vibe like Yanks just figure it out like you always do. But yeah, again, that's where I'm at with this. I don't think I'm being all that unrealistic at all, but by no means am I going to like force myself into settling after just getting embarrassed in the World Series, because there's nothing cool about going to the World Series. I won't give you guys that whole spiel again, but you know how I feel. You might as well have lost in the ALDS in terms of is the season a success or not. It was a failure. So with that said, I'm not going to be like, even though I think I am being, I'm not going to force myself into being quote-unquote rational when it comes to the way Brian Cashman views the word. Soto's not enough. And I like to think Hal understands that and is feeling it himself. And again, they just made so much fucking money, chat. So much money we can't even fathom it. But all right, let me pull up the chat and see if we have any questions really quick. I can't spend too long here because I do have all my dogs coming over, doing a little election watch party. You know what I'm saying? But we do got some super chats from VMan29397. Says $5 super chat. Appreciate you, bro. Says nothing will change till this coaching staff hammers in the fundamentals. This spring training, it doesn't matter who we sign. We will see more errors. I know what you're saying, and I definitely agree with the sentiment of it. Obviously, it does matter who we sign because right now, Trent Grisham's our starting right fielder. Just to make a point. But I know what you're saying. Absolutely. The fundamentals, that is what all goes along with number 5 there. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning, too. That no doubt about it is, you could argue, is the first priority this offseason, or first one after Soto. So I'm definitely with you. Chris Calaith sends out a super chat. Appreciate you, bro. Says, would you entertain a trade for Ke'Bryan Hayes? I think the neighbors are having a election watch party too. Maybe I'll stop by. Kidding. I'll look into it. To be honest, I just don't know if that's like a thing. Damn, bro. Am I always that loud? Because you would think these people across the hall are in my fucking crib right now, dude. Anyways, why did I just look up Juan Soto on Fangraphs? Ke'Bryan Hayes. I won't spend too much time because I don't think it's gonna happen. But no, I'm good. Holy crap, he's awful, dude. No, he's awful. But I appreciate the super chat, though. Let's get back to it, though. Yo, chat, how we doing? How's everybody hanging out so far in the offseason? I'm not gonna lie to you, yo. I was fully banking on yesterday kind of being like officially over it. Like, in terms of being able to move on, which I have. I can't really dwell on shit, or else I get even more crazy about it. But, like, between Joe Kelly being a fucking dickhead, he's a pussy, bro. Like, I don't need to hear from Joe Kelly, dude, please. That's obviously, and Cashman talked about it, which, who cares what Cashman has to say about it, but it's true. Like, that's clearly just, like, Joe Kelly's hating, dude. And I don't need to be hearing it from Joe Kelly, who's the only person you're going to hear it from, because he's the only fucking MFer that anybody can get on their podcast. That's a Dodger, because nobody else has the time to do it. So, that is, I shouldn't have expected to be able to get over it by today or by this week. With that said, though, this is how we get over it. We move on to the next year. We are now on to 2025, chat. I was even thinking, do I put this live stream in a playlist that's called 2025 Yankees? But not yet. We're still, I'll call it 2024 because part of this was reflective. But, Dan, what do you think of a Naylor trade? I don't love it, and not because I have anything against Naylor, which I do, but not to the point where, like, I'll tell you this right now, Bregman, fuck no. I want nothing to do with Bregman. It's not like that, though, with Naylor. Like, Naylor's fucking whatever. I can get over that. It's not even a thing anymore. I'm sorry, though. He's just, like, literally obese. He really, really is, dude. He's not an athlete. So I'm totally, to be honest, against the idea of that right now, because it kind of goes against what we have to do this offseason, which is just become a better baseball team. I don't think adding, like, a 300-pound first baseman falls in line with that, but I understand the idea of it. Same with Alonso. Definitely different, though. Nah. Alonso's just like, he's just husky. He's not like a sloppy pig. You know what I'm saying? Not to be rude. Jonathan India. It's interesting. It's an interesting name. I'm pretty set, to be honest, of where I'm at right now with Soto, Walker, Arenado. Let me throw up a poll really quick. Morgan, I'm going to give you a poll access soon, too. By the way, how you doing, Morgan? Good to see you. Yeah, no, I'm good with Bregman, dude. I'm totally good off Bregman. No chance in hell. Let's see. Would you entertain a trade for Nolan Arenado? And I'll say, if Yankees Resign Soto. And, I won't say that. I'll just say, would you entertain a trade for Nolan Arenado? Which, I'm no fool, yo. I know, like, Nolan Arenado has regressed. He definitely has regressed. But he's still an above-league average hitter, terrific defense, which that would be nice at third base. And then for those who are worried about Jazz at third, you get the benefit of that. He goes to second. And lineup-wise, man, I mean, you could have him at 7th or 8th. I mean, it's not like we wouldn't be getting Nolan Arenado to bat third and be like the guy he was a couple years ago when he was an MVP candidate. But let's see. Oof, Pole's literally, as I'm looking at it right now, 50-50. Literally 50-50. So we'll give it a second. Dan, I go hard after Devin Williams. Devontae, dude, we mentioned it before. I'm down. I'm definitely down. And that's the kind of guy I'm saying they should definitely at least look into, which the Yankees certainly will. But, yeah, for those who don't know, the D-backs, he had a club option for $10.5 million this year. But, of course, he's coming off, what do you have, like a fractured back or something? Fractured ribs, maybe? I forget what it was, but he only pitched like 20 innings this year. And so they declined that club option, but he's still under control. So they have another year of arbitration on him. Basically what it means is they declined the $10.5 million club option, so that way they can just pay him the $7 million they'll be able to get him for in arbitration. So may not sit too well with him, and in general, the Brewers do a lot of trading 1 year before free agency, as we saw with Corbin Burns, or Josh Hader, whatever it may be. So there's a good possibility Devin Williams gets moved, and for those who aren't really aware of him, he's the pitcher that gave up the Alonso homer, but he is one of the better closers in baseball. I would be all for it, Devontae. Let's see, 53% are saying, or 55% are saying yes to Arenado, 44% are saying no. We'll say it's pretty much 50-50. I get you guys being split. It was not something I was really thinking about too much until today, and maybe I get turned off the further I look into it. Again, this was not an offseason blueprint. We will get to that, and that'll be the much more like detail where I basically am a GM for a week, breaking down everything. Camilo Duvall, down for that. Like, that's the kind of name I'm talking about when I say bolster the bullpen with at least one legitimate name. Again, do your thing with the Yankees, like getting guys off the scrap heap. That is something they're legitimately good at, and that continued into this year. But get a name, especially with Clay leaving, which I'm not going to act like it's the end of the world. I know you guys certainly won't, but it is a loss. Like, replace him with somebody. Like, even Camilo Duvall, dude, I would be all for that. Tanner Scott, I don't think Tanner Scott's going to happen. What's good, Noah? Rotation is actually pretty much set now, and then we got to get out of here, but we'll just go big. Right now, your rotation is set. You got Cole, Rodon, Heel, or you'll go Cole, Rodon, Clark, Heel, Stroman. Now, I'll tell you this right now about Stroman. He's gotten a lot of shit. Like, my boy Earl was posting how he threw 0 pitches in the postseason. Yankees didn't really need him to. I guess he was just roasting the contract. But Marcus Stroman as your 5 in the regular season is not just fine. It's, like, good. 30 starts with a 4-year pitcher. Marcus Stroman, if he's in the starting staff next year, I mean, if he's on the team, he'll be on the staff. Unless, they trade him or something. But I would expect 30 starts with a 4 ERA from Stroman next year, and that's your 5. So, I mean, Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, Heel, Clark, and Nestor too, dog. I fucking forgot about Nestor. The rotation is so set that you don't have to worry about it. I'm not saying it's the best in the league, but it's a good rotation. Like, you can get by still. Not even to say get by. It's a good, complete rotation, and then some, because you have 6 starting pitchers. With that said, chat, and we'll probably close out with this. And that is true. Ryan makes a good point. Starting pitching depth is really difficult with Nestor and Cole elbow problems. I don't worry too much about Cole, but the Nestor thing is a good point. You don't want to bank on too much from Nestor, although you could. I mean, I was at this point last year saying I'm not banking on anything from Nestor following the shoulder injury, and he made, 30 starts? But no, I definitely hear you on that. One point I want to make, though, and this is like speculative, like just keep in mind, I won't go as far as say I'm predicting it to happen, but keep your eyes peeled to Clark and Heel. I think there's a very, very plausible chance one of the two, only one of the two, not both obviously, but one of the two gets dealt. And I'll tell you right now, chat, from a value standpoint, and I love the guy to death, and if he's still on the team next year, which I'm not going to predict he won't be. I mean, if he is, word though, this guy's fucking awesome. But Luis Gil's value is so high right now. And just hear me out for a second. Again, I love Luis Gil. I'm all for him being on the team next year. I love him as a Yankee. He's great. But a 25-year-old 15-game winner who probably is going to win Rookie of the Year, by the way. We've kind of just put that to bed a little and kind of forgot about it with the way Wells was hitting and the rough spot that Gil had in junior. Gil probably is going to win Rookie of the Year, I think. Anyways, 5 years of control, gas, strikes guys out. Pitched a pretty damn complete season this year. I mean, he made 30 starts, right? Yeah. You only do it for the proper value. You don't just trade him to trade him, obviously. But I'm not going to lie. I could see, not long term, but just sophomore slump type thing, a regression from heel next year. And just in general with baseball, even though he's already had one, maybe even two, 5 years of control would not shock me if we lose at least one of those to an arm injury at some point. So I'm not saying you make this move because you think Heel's going to be ass. By no means. Like Heel's fucking good. But you're coming from a slight position of strength, kind of. And you could always, listen, you could trade Heel or Clark. I think one of the two, very good chance of getting traded. And then sign a Nathan Eovaldi or something. It doesn't mean you have to then rely on the other 5 guys that we do have. Because you really wouldn't want to do that. Like, it's risky. Like Ryan said, starting pitching depth is important. But, like, say you could, I know I want Christian Walker, but Luis Heel in a deal for, and this control-wise, and it adds up, like, perfectly, actually, like Luis Heel for a Vinny Pasquantino from the Royals. Like, that's the only return if you wanted to go out and get Vinny Pasquantino to be your first baseman. Like, the only deal that gets that done, really, again, lines up perfectly, would be like a Luis Heel. Now, I think I would probably want a little more than just Vinny Pasquantino, but again, something like that, if you want, that's what you want. Like, Yankees are like, we need Vinny Pasquantino. And Heel's how you get it done. You can do it and then go out and sign a Nathan Eovaldi to replace him in the rotation. So, I don't want to say I'm endorsing it, but I almost kind of am. So I don't want to be bullshitting with you guys. Like, the idea of Heel's value in trading it right now does intrigue me. But, again, I could also see Clark getting dealt, one of the two, because both those guys have a shit ton of value. Clark has at least another, 2 years of control. Anyways, chat, I think that is, Corbin Burns not going to happen. I think he's going to be a Met, but he was tweeting out, what did he tweet out? After the Dodgers won the World Series, their celebration post, he, put eye emojis or something, he was going to sign with the Dodgers, something along those lines. But, chat, I think that's going to do it for this one. Appreciate you guys so much. Sorry I couldn't really hang out in the chat too much, but I do got to get going soon. Now, actually. But, first offseason stream is in the books. Again, appreciate you guys so much for being with me or us just being together. Sorry. I had a Coke before this. All season long. Just doing our thing, and we'll be doing it again, once a week. Breaking news. And then, obviously, watch parties and all that will return come the regular season. But, that's quite a ways away. So we'll worry about that when we get there. And to be honest, I can't even think about the regular season right now. So I'm good off even going there anyways. But I am ready for the offseason, I'm still mourning World Series, no doubt about it. And like I said, I will be till we do win. But I love offseason shit. So good chat with you guys today. Appreciate you as always. And enjoy the election tonight, I guess. See you guys next time. Probably, unless there's some breaking news, probably right around this time next week. Love you guys. Let's go Yanks.